With the Corpus Christi Islanders being located only 2 hours away from Edinburgh, you'd expect their familiarity being so close to UTRGV, but also being rivals with them to be an advantage coming into the Southland Conference. However, instead, I talked to head coach Scott Malone. He told me there's no advantage at all. In fact, coming in today, he told me the Vaqueros and the Islanders only have ever played midweek games. They'd come in, travel on Tuesdays, play, then drive back that same night. No hotels needed. In fact, just last year was the last time they've been here in Edinburgh. Coming in today, Coach Malone said as long as his team makes the Vaqueros uncomfortable, they've done their jobs. Currently on the mound for the Vaqueros is the Southland Conference Newcomer of the Year, Victor Loa. But just 1 year ago, Victor had no intentions of ever playing baseball again. Back in 2023, he was playing at Blinn College, and things weren't going his way. He'd messed up his shoulders, and even in his fingers, he had pinched nerves. But when things couldn't get worse, Victor shattered everything in his left elbow. Going through his mind is these negative thoughts, knowing he burnt through his year at Blinn College, but also knowing no one would transfer him in. With that, he came back to UTRGV, enrolled as a student being a Valley native, but hated baseball, got a full reconstruction on his elbow, and didn't want to look at the game, didn't want to be around it, and that's because he grew up with this game. Even with his physical therapy, he wasn't engaging and doing any movements as if he was going to get back on the fields, once more hating it. But whenever he looked himself in the mirror and realized, I'm 20 pounds heavier than I've ever been, I don't feel good, maybe I should get in shape, that's when Victor started getting back in the gym, working hard, but at the same time, no intentions of getting back on the field. However, during a local sim game in the summer, he finally got on the fields and pitched for the first time in a single year. And coincidentally, some UTRGV coaches were there, and Victor pitched, got off the mound, and they asked him, hey, what was your VO, 84, 85? And Victor told him, no, 91, consistently. The very next day, Victor had an offer from UTRGV and accepted. But little did he ever think he would join back baseball, become a starter, nonetheless become the Southland Conference Newcomer of the Year. Victor told me with his perseverance, his will, his family's sacrifice, he would never be in this position, and he is so grateful. In case you didn't know what the past 48 hours have looked like for the Houston Christian Huskies, let me fill you in because it's been all about turnover. Tuesday evening, they traveled to Sam Houston and were victorious on the road, winning 6-3, traveled back to their facilities, then from there departed at 6:30 in the morning and drove straight here to UTRGV Baseball Stadium for practice at 2 p.m. So sleep, rest, reset coming in, slim to none. I talked to head coach Clay Vanderlaan about just his thoughts coming into the tournament, and he told me overall the team is riding that momentum from their victory Tuesday, but they also have a bitter taste in their mouth after having got swept by Lamar last week. But after hearing and talking to his team, they have a really strong passion for coming back, and when they found out the bracket play they were going to be playing Lamar the very first game of the tournament, they were beyond hungry and thankful. That's why he said coming in today, the team has so much to prove and they're ready to do it. Damian Ruiz of the Lamar Cardinals was announced as the Southland Conference Hitter of the Year, but just 1 year ago, Damian was out with an injury. He was previously a part of the Houston Christian roster, and he had dived in for home plate. That's when he tore his rotator cuff. This is at the beginning of season, and going through his mind is, I haven't had the best so far. Now I need surgery. I can't stay at HCU. Sure enough, he entered the transfer portal, and Lamar picked him up, but his recovery was very lengthy. No off-season, no preseason, no fall season. In fact, Damian was thinking to himself, all my team is playing without me, and I'm losing out the opportunity with reps. Sure enough, since February now, 3 months ago, Damian finally returned to the field and has since then led the Southland Conference with a .398 batting average with the most runs, hits, walks, doubles, and the best on-base average. In fact, Damian told me his reaction to hearing this great news of him being announced the Hitter of the Year, he didn't expect it. In fact, he didn't even look at the stats the whole year. He said without Lamar taking a risk on him, knowing he was coming in with a .222 batting average, knowing he didn't have the best stats, as well as just knowing that he was injured, was the best opportunity he could have ever gotten. Senior Zach Garcia of the Islanders has been part of the program for 4 years, and he loves baseball, but it's only part of what he wants for his future. Zach just graduated with a degree in biomedical sciences and plans to become a doctor. He just recently took his MCAT, but I was asking him, being a starting Division I pitcher, as well as juggling all that studying and the time management, how has he been able to do it? And he broke down his schedule for me, telling me every single day he studies for 5 hours with the MCAT. So what his schedule looks like is in the morning, he wakes up, studies for 2 hours, goes to practice, gets his things done, and then in the evening he studies for 3 more hours. Even when they're on the road, traveling out and about, in the hotel lobby, in his hotel room, guess what Zach's doing? Studying. I asked him, this is pure motivation, but this is so much too on your plate. How are you able to do it all? And Zach told me he does it for his mother. She'd passed away when he was 14 years old, and she was his main support system, his reason why. And to this day, that's still his reason why. I talked to head coach Scott Malone, and he told me that Zach is one of the best persons he's ever met in his life. It was Coach Vanderlaan who had recruited Parker out of high school, and at the time, Parker was 5'7" and weighed 160 pounds. But whenever he entered the St. Thomas facilities, he was now 6'4" and weighed 200 pounds. He had played very great his freshman year there, so whenever head coach Clay Vanderlaan had to get hired to be an assistant coach at HCU, he brought Parker along with him, and they have been together ever since. And it was actually under Coach Vanderlaan that Parker switched from being a catcher to now a pitcher. And the way it went about was Parker was telling me there was 2 great power hitters that had came in, and at the time he had gone into the bullpen to throw some balls just for temporarily reasons, and then sure enough his VO was a 92, and that's currently where Parker has been residing since. So not only has Coach Vanderlaan seen Parker Edwards grow quite literally, but also grow into a new role on the field. Talk to me further about the strength of your offense, just with 15 hits, 11 runs, back-to-back runs in crucial moments. How important is that in this first round of tournament play? You had told me earlier this week that in July you only had 7 players on your roster. You took chances on nearly 20 JUCO players, and now look what they've done, Coach. Just your thoughts on this season overall and how it's came through for you.
33 really
what
good.
can you take from this game into your rematch versus HCU in a bit? Armani, in that 6th inning, 2 home runs. What were you looking for at the plate?
Yeah, I mean,
seeing how much heart and fight your team has, how can you use that to your advantage for the rest of this tournament? So, Lise, Cam, 3.5 scoreless innings, no runs allowed, no walks. Talk to me about your composure on the mound in such a pressure moment.